perspective. This week, we're going to continue our conversation from last week and do part two, and we're really going to go deep into this discussion this week. But before we do that, I have to ask, how are my brothers doing? So I'm gonna start off with LV, who needs to wake up a little bit and say, "How are you doing?"
Hey man, been working hard today, man. Uh, I'm just here. I'm
I
here.
I, I completely understand. I feel every bit of that.
Got my
JP, how are
got
you
my stuff
doing?
here.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready for us to get down to this business. Let's handle it.
And Coleman, how are you doing representing the KC in Seattle?
Bruh, you know what? I had to bring it out, man. These folks out here acting like we don't exist. I had to let them know. But I'm doing good, John. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing well. Just enjoying life. Just can't wait to see what tomorrow brings.
Mm,
Well,
mm.
we really want to get into part two, but before we do that, we're going to do a good, bad, and ridiculous. And this one is a little bit different. We want to talk about what the recent controversy that came out in the last week and a half. Tiffany Haddish and Ari Spears. A few years back, when Tiffany was starting off, she had a relationship with a parent who has some kids. And Ari Spears wanted to put out a public service announcement talking about child molestation. Well, they recorded a video and it has resurfaced in the last week or so, and people are in an uproar about how could they use these kids about this video showing child molestation. Now, what they were trying to show is you should leave your kids with anyone. So, my question to these brothers is, was it a good, bad, or ridiculous decision for them to use a skit to talk about the hazards of possible child molestation? And keep in mind, this was done about 10, 15 years ago. I'm going to go with Coleman. Your thoughts?
Man, that shit was so terrible, dog. It was ridiculously bad, man. It showed poor judgment, but in my opinion, you never use kids as your subject matter. Even when you're talking about something like child molestation, and the way they did it was eerie, bruh.
Hmm.
A little boy, he looked, Aries is looking through the paper, and the little boy crawling around his drawers, man. Uh, it was very poor taste. It wasn't funny. The subject matter, the prop that they used as a child, falling in I mean, it was so much bad shit about that, John. I mean, it's just, dude, that's the type of thing that would make me say I can no longer support you. You
I
know,
feel you.
if you not go, if you want to say I'm not gonna listen to R. Kelly's music, on these things, and I'm not. That's the type of thing that would be like, somebody using that poor judgment. I can't support. So I thought it was ridiculously bad. I thought it was terrible.
LV, what are your thoughts?
Uh, Once again, ridiculous. Because when I first seen the video, I'm like, the video in itself is what I didn't know it was supposed to be anti that. I just found that out recently, and when I seen it, I mean, you could have got that point across without doing acting it out the way that they did. I mean, it was
Yeah.
even in poor taste that when he was looking at the little boy crawling around on the ground, they're gonna play a R. Kelly song. I
Yeah.
Hmm.
mean, all of that just in poor taste. And I saw a thing today where they caught Tiffany Haddish walking through an airport or something because I guess they made a settlement, and she say she lost everything. She can't get it. She say all the gigs she had, they don't, they can cut ties with her because of that. But it was all done in poor taste. I don't even see how you could have did it and thought that you did something positive. So
Yeah.
We're gonna give JP a little bit to catch his breath and get his perspective.
Okay. One, I think we're minimizing it by referring to it as a public service announcement And here's the reason why I say that. In the articles that I read about it, and even the quote by Tiffany Haddish, they were saying that it was a part of a skit that was supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be a part of something. I can't remember the name of it. Laugh or the, laugh or this or something. This was not something that was done with serious intention to be a public service announcement.
Okay. Okay. I did. Okay.
Okay. And when you think about it, the attempt at humor, when you have a child in a bathtub and a grown man falling, getting into the tub with him, and the kid was basically undressed with the exception of his underwear on. And Johnny Quick, you sent an edited version of it, but even the edited version of it, you could tell it was grossly and horribly inappropriate.
Yes.
And so technically, here's something to think about. The reason why it would be considered sexually abusive is because once you expose kids, these kids were 7 and 14 at the time. Once you expose kids to sexuality, that's not innocence that you can ever return to them. At that point, they have been sexually ignited. And once you open up the door to sexuality, you can't close that. Something else to think about is when it comes to exposure to sexuality, kids who have been exposed to sexuality exhibit many of the exact same symptoms as kids who have been sexually abused. So a kid who has been sexually abused, for example, will go to school and reenact their sexual abuse with their peers. Okay. If they have been fondled or someone has molested them in any type of way, that's what kids do. They reenact what they've experienced in their play with other kids. And this is something that alarms parents so much because when we send our kids to school, we don't know anything about the background of the other kids that they are in school with. Mm-hmm. So we sending our kid to school and our kid is leaving the home an innocent child, but they in school. And if there's a kid who's been sexually abused and that kid decides to show them what fellatio looks like, your kid comes home a totally different person than who you sent them to school as, and their innocence is gone. But the interesting thing to think about is that kids who have been sexually exposed, and by that I mean kids who have been shown pornography by adults, when they go to school, they reenact what they have seen. So have they actually experienced it? No. But when they go to school, they're reenacting it the same as kids who have experienced it. So it has the same effects on a child. Exposure and actual sexual abuse has the same effects. And this is the reason why when schools and people hotline kids who are sexually acting out, yes, they always assume that, okay, someone did these things to this kid. And sometimes I have to remind them, well, there is the possibility that this child has just been exposed to these things. We can't assume that the parent or uncle or grandparent or whoever or grand or auntie, because they're female sex offenders, we can't assume that they actually committed these sex crimes against this kid, but the effects are the same, which is the reason why it's still hotlineable. So even though in these videos, they did not actually sexually abuse the 7 and the 14-year-old, the things that they did is still considered to be sexually abusive. So can I feel bad for her that her career has been negatively affected? Well, y'all know me. No, I don't feel a damn thing that her career
feel any way about it. I mean, I was just stating how how big it's gotten,
Oh yeah, it's
and
huge.
that's why it's so ridiculous now. And that's something that could have
Hey,
been avoided.
Yeah, it's
um,
absolutely ridiculous. It's
Go ahead,
horrible.
D.
go ahead, Coleman.
Okay, can I add something? Because I want to get a little bit off topic. Are we, John? Were you gonna give your thoughts on that?
I was, but JP went a
No,
little
please,
long.
but no, we
Um,
still need to hear you.
but before I give the my opinion, I want just ask this question: since the mother was friends with Tiffany, do you feel that she's partly responsible with this?
Oh, she
Yeah.
trusted her friend to do the right thing. Shit.
Well, what
If
they
she
were
was gonna
saying,
step, she should have shut it down.
what the mother was saying is that Tiffany Haddish told her that her kid was going to be doing something totally different and did not inform her that it was going to be sexual in nature. And
Mhm.
that when it unfolded and her kid came downstairs in tears, her question to Tiffany Haddish was, "What the F is going on? What's wrong with my kid?" And that allegedly Tiffany Haddish's response was, "I don't think acting is for him." And the mother was infuriated and saying, "Acting, my kid is crying. What happened that my kid is crying?" So the mother is saying that she was not informed that that was even what they were going to be doing.
And
Well,
at one
you
point,
know,
Tiffany said she didn't know what Aries was doing as far as the
right.
his in particular action. She was saying she wasn't there for when he did all that. So I don't know. It sounds like everybody's trying to have some escapability on this thing right
Right.
Right.
now.
And it's gone to court, and the court case had been dismissed a couple of times. So I don't really know all the details of what happened, who's lying, who's trying to cover their butt. But the my point of view, at surface, what I can see and what has been exposed to me, this was this was very idiotic and very ridiculous. And I take in consideration it was done 10 to 15 years ago, and mindsets change, but I think 10 to 15 years ago it still would have been a bad situation because like you said, JP, kids imitate what they see, and if this is what they're seeing, especially with no context around it, then they're going to go, if anything, brag up to their friends, hey, I was in this commercial, or hey, I was in this skit, let me show you what we did, and then it kind of has a domino effect. So I think it could easily grow to be more than what it is on surface, and I think it was ridiculous and it was horrible. As far as the losing of her job or anything like that, I don't know all the details because, like I said, it's gone to court, so I don't know. But a lot of this people are saying came out because Ari Spears went in on Lizzo, and now who support Lizzo started digging around and found this on him, and his career is pretty much trash because it was trash before this even came out. So if anything, you might help him instead of hurt him. And I know from
Nah, bro.
personal knowledge
He ain't getting no
about
comedy
Eric
club
Spears.
shows.
No, he's not. But he could
I mean,
get
he's done now. He's done. Ain't nobody touching him.
Yeah, and I didn't hear that it had been to court before. The mother had tried to hire attorneys before, and the attorneys had dropped the case. Um, I think this is the first time that it went to court. I don't know if she basically paid them off or what the case may be. It does look like one of those situations where she paid them off, and any attorney with their weight would suggest to her, you need to pay them off to go away and
right.
do a non-disclosure so that they don't talk about this, or your career is going to be totally ruined. That's most likely what happened.
And I'm gonna use this to segue into today's topic because one of the
Hold
things
on,
we talk.
John. Right quick before we segue, I just got to hit on a couple of points.
Okay.
Gerald scared me, dog. He said we sending our kids to school and they gonna get their dick sucked, and then he used terminology talking about sexually ignited. I was like, if he had told me that sexually ignited piece when I was still in these streets, I'd have used that in the club.
It is, it's scary when you think about what kids have gone through. And I've been on both sides of it because when Nadine and I were foster parents, the state would put sex offenders in our home without telling us. And we would send these kids to school and get calls from the school that they were sexually acting out with other kids, which would leave me infuriated because one, you didn't tell us that you was putting a sex offender in my damn house, and we told you we don't take sex offenders. Two, the parents of these children, they sent their kid to school to get an education, and now their kid is coming home knowing about fellatio or cunnilingus or fondling or whatever it is that took place. It's a scary thing to know that your kid may not come home the same that you sent them to school.
Don't
You know,
make me
people can
want
say what they
to.
want about USD 500, but I never had that experience growing up. You
Me
know,
either, bro.
It happens. I know for a fact it
yeah,
happens.
that must have been over there in Washington. Them stallions wasn't doing that.
No,
All right,
no,
John, back to you.
no, 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 no.
Back
We
to you,
don't
John.
say that. No, because I like how we would segue and then you gonna say something and then try and make it like we're gonna segue it out that way. No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
I'm just curious, man. Back to you, John.
Um, we'll come back to this if we have time and
The
address that
Wildcats be
issue.
getting angry, don't they, Laveria?
The must,
Them
man.
stallions. See them stallions.
You know I love you, Wildcats, man. You know I'm just playing with
Yeah, we might be wild, but y'all trotting. But anyway,
y'all.
And just
how
for
we
the
gonna
record, I ain't
segue
no
this?
Italian either, though.
I know.
This all this all
Uh,
bulldog here.
uh,
Hey,
anywho, the way I want to segue now
bulldog
is
see the day I
completely
die,
different
boy.
the way I was going to segue earlier. But we had started part one last week with the movie Honk for Jesus, and I want to tie it this way because Gerald was saying that was supposed to be funny and it wasn't dealing with a serious matter. And that's how I want to tackle it starting off this week, where Honk for Jesus was supposed to be a comedy, but the topic, the central point of it is really of a serious nature that should probably be addressed a little bit more serious than the joke. Who knows, 10 years from now, people may come back on Sterling and um I just forgot her name, Regina, and
Regina.
say that they probably shouldn't have done this movie because it touched upon the sexuality of the pastor dealing with men, touched upon a lot of things, and so where I want to start off with the question um, with Coleman and ask, what do you think about how this movie alluded to the pastor's sexuality and also the part where it was supposed to be a comedy? Do you think it should have been more serious or a little less about the sexuality to make it even? We off the top we know it's a bad movie, but I want to start it that way.
You
You
know,
didn't
the
have to
comedy approach didn't bother me.
critic.
John, a
Yeah,
film
movie
critic.
critic now and shit. Damn.
Yeah.
You work with Sister
Uh,
Lieber?
yeah, the
You
comedy
intern
piece
with
didn't
them?
bother me. They'll be tripping. The comedy piece didn't bother me. Actually, I like some topics. I think it's better to approach from a comedic standpoint because it makes it easier to generate the overall conversation. So them saying, you know what, we're going to approach this um, topic from that avenue didn't bother me. Um, I thought that um, it allowed them to touch on some things and stay on the surface, but then allowing the community to go in and say, well, this is what I think, and allowed us to generate conversation around those topics. And I thought JP made a good point when people were walking out and saying it might be blasphemous. I thought that JP made a good point because we all bring our individual understanding, beliefs, and things of that nature to all of these conversations. So the way that they approached it didn't bother me at all. I thought that the one scene that I thought where, well, two scenes actually, where Regina wanted to make love and she was like, let's do it the normal way because he could only get behind her. And then it was like he couldn't perform after that. And then also when she came in, when he was talking to the film, to the guy from the crew, and she came in and was like, yo, we can't do this. We just paid out a lot of money. For me, the movie showed the culpability and her role in some of that because she was much more aware of his likings than she had let on previously. But them approaching it from a comedic standpoint, that didn't bother me at all.
LV, what are your thoughts?
As far as them exposing that part,
Exposing that, but do you think the comedy was the best way, or do you think the movie should have been a little bit more serious in nature?
well, seeing as how bad the movie was, the comedy route is the only way to go. Because I mean, y'all laughing, but we can talk about it and maybe have some fun and try to poke holes at it. But if you're going to try to be serious, and this is a serious topic, and be that poorly put together, I mean, you had two great actor and
Yeah,
actresses that were the lead roles in it. They could have handled anything. I mean, what they were presented to work with was, I mean, they gave them, chicken, what, and expected them to make, chicken salad. Y'all like how I kept that clean for y'all?
yeah, I was surprised.
I'm trying to figure out why the hell you trying to keep clean. Like, what's wrong?
Y'all talking about putting a sensor on me and delay button and shit?
He
What?
was messing with you. He was messing with you, LB.
So
Now
you
go
had,
on and be profane like you usually.
Nah, let it go. He working himself into his profanity. He gonna get there by the end.
I mean, I
Right.
was trying to put this shit in trial. But that's the only way you could do that. I mean, and out of respect for other people, I'm gonna, give up my remaining time because my other comments may not be suitable for ears over the airwaves. So
Why is he censored? LV, we need you to not be censored, okay? Ain't nobody censoring you.
I'm censoring myself. My mama taught me if you can't say something nice, baby, don't say nothing at all.
You are
I
not
don't have
typically censored
I don't
during
have
this
nothing nice
podcast.
to say. I don't have anything nice to say about what the main subjects and the topics of the movies. Because I was hornswoggled with that movie. I didn't watch that movie
Hornswoggle.
for what I thought it was. They led me astray with that goddamn trailer that they showed
Oh, here
when I
he goes.
to see
All
something.
right.
And then
LV done showed up.
fuck the movie was about. It pissed me the fuck off. I'm like,
Oh, oh,
goddamn.
LV's here. Oh, LV is here.
I'm like, these motherfuckers, this is the shit.
What?
And then the first thing came to my mind, I ain't gonna name no names, but there was a minister in Atlanta, sounded like the same fucking situation. I'm there, I be goddamn.
So what did you think about that scene where he was behind her and couldn't
And
function?
that sold it for me right there. Because when he said, well, do that other thing. So obviously all he was doing was fantasizing about his little boyfriend. And that just turned my stomach.
It kind of came across like that was a little bit of a wake-up call for her also.
Yeah.
But them presenting the movie, them wrapping a serious subject matter in humor, I felt like it was appropriate because of the subject matter. We don't do that when it comes to damn child sexual abuse. That's never appropriate. I think they intentionally wanted to make a statement with the movie,
Oh, and
but
one thing, Gerald, I don't mean to cut you out, but and then one thing I will give them credit for, they made sure to make sure that nobody thought this was about child
Kids. Hmm.
molestation. Because there was several times he was like, these were grown men. All the people talking about it was saying them was some grown ass men.
yeah,
Even though, like I said, that shit made me go, but at least it was a fact. Hey, they were adults, and they gave him integrity there. But go ahead.
yeah, and I kind of appreciated that also, um, because that's a whole nother layer if they'd have got into child sexual abuse.
You
But
play with that, like you said.
yeah, but yeah, I thought it was okay also. Like Coleman is saying, I thought it was okay that they presented that subject matter in a humorous way. And I think they intentionally wanted it to seem a little ridiculous because a lot of what goes on in the black church is ridiculous.
Mm.
So it
When
makes
you say
sense
it was
that
a
they
wake up call,
presented.
what do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What do you mean you think it was a wake up call for her?
Well, yeah, she knew that they were in trouble behind him screwing men. I think the look on her face that he was to the point where he was unable to perform with her because I think she was in denial about the gravity of it. I think that it was at that point that it was a true wake up call, the sincere, true gravity of it, that she was not going to ever have her husband. Like, she wasn't going to have him. Whatever she had told herself that he was, it was not true, and he couldn't hide it anymore. I
And
think
you
he
know,
was, I
I, I,
think
Go
he
ahead.
had been
That's who he
hiding
was.
it.
That's who he truly was.
That was
That's when
who he
he was at
truly
his
was.
happiest. That's when he
and,
was at his happiest when he was doing that bullshit. That's
But
when
and
they.
see, I
see,
don't. But she wasn't surprised because when she said, "Let's do it the normal way," that tells
it tells me,
He was still by at that point, bro.
Yeah,
She
and
realized he was no
yeah.
longer.
But what I'm saying is that wasn't a revelation to her.
well, but there are many
That's his
men.
preferred, but that's his preferred method of getting at her. And I don't think he was just getting behind her to say, "Let's do doggy style." He was doing some other
Mm-mm.
things when he was behind her that
That's what I
alluded to
Oh
believe.
his
yeah,
the actual way. That wasn't
oh
new
yeah.
to her. When she
and
has to say, "Let's do it the normal way," nobody asks you to do it the normal way if y'all doing it the normal way on a normal basis. He been jumping
Right.
behind her for a minute.
And
She
right.
that's
knew
why
And
it
you
I'm
was
know
his
what?
saying.
shit.
I
But
want,
the
I want,
It wasn't a
I want to make
revelation.
this point. I want to make this point and say that we kind of said some things last week that that I believe this movie was given as a comedy, like you said, to accept. But I think people who are more entrenched and struggling with their religious belief are looking at some of these things and needed a more drama filled movie, if you will, because like we're talking about him having a revelation or they already knew this and she come to a point and said, well, it's not going to be the way I thought. The one of the things that she said through the movie is I want to get back to the stage. And so her representing the first lady and the power that comes with being the first lady and not willing to give that up. There's a message really behind that that I
Right.
think needs to be dived in a little bit more to talk about that power in the power couple, the pastor and the
Hmm.
first lady, the power of just being the first lady, the look at the what's acceptable because of stereotypes. We'll go with stereotypes. It's acceptable for the choir director to be to participate in homosexuality, but the church frowns upon if the pastor does it. And so we have to have that conversation. What makes it okay for one and not okay for the other? And that's the reason why I think this movie should have done it a little bit more on the serious nature than comedy. But I'll let you go ahead with your other point.
um I was just the point I was making because I hear what Coleman is saying. The point I was making as far as the wake up call for her is she wouldn't have asked to do it the regular way if she thought that he still could, because there are many men who on a regular basis have anal sex with their women, and the women are not taking it as if they are imagining that they're with another man. Now, he had been with men, they were in trouble, they were having legal problems with it, but I think LV was saying that. I think in her mind, she was still hoping that he was at least bisexual and that she could still be intimate with her husband. What she found out is no, he wasn't, and she couldn't. Was she willing to let it go? No, because of the power. She thought about it, and I like it that they at least put her in a position where she was thinking about it. Because a lot of times when it comes to church scandals, those first ladies stand by their man. And it is about the power and the influence and everything that the first lady has also. Everybody focuses on the power that the pastor has because, yes, the pastor is put on the pedestal. And oftentimes, especially in black churches, but in white churches also, the pastor is practically worshiped as if they're damn near the Lord. But those first ladies, they play a hugely significant role. And a lot of times they are not willing to give that up. And from what I have seen in providing therapy to pastors and first ladies, they don't leave. I've never had one who was like, I'm getting a divorce.
It's
Never.
the dignity. They don't want to lose that dignity because, like in the movie, her dignity got attacked 2 serious times.
Mm.
When she ran into the lady at the mall,
Mm-hmm.
that really that she took a shot there. And then when she was standing out there doing the mime thing, and the young lady walked by with the toddler, the way
Mm-hmm.
she talked to her, so that's why. And then when she seen where he was at, that's why she was like, you know what, we gonna come back because I'm at least I'm gonna have this.
But you missed the third time. You missed the third time when they went to the other church and the other lady was like, "I'm the first lady, and I'm running things over here,"
Yeah,
and it
because
kind
that
of.
that first lady was dominant as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because hey, but but I ain't gonna say nothing. My favorite part of the movie, I think, like we said last week, was the scene when they rolled up to the church playing "Knuck If You Buck."
Boy,
Right.
boy.
Hey,
Uh, uh.
hey,
Hey,
you
can I
you
ask a
got
question?
hey. I mean that she was a ride or die chick, honey to his Clyde, and
Hey,
I
John, can I
respect
ask
Question.
a
that
question?
about her.
Yes, sir.
So we talk about this, and not just with the black church, and I know that's what this movie emphasized, but you look at Hillary Bill. I mean, we could talk about a lot of instances where the woman stood by the man, and it could
Mm-hmm.
have been a power structure, right?
Right. Right.
But my question is a little bit off topic. So when you look at Oprah and Stedman, or you look at Kamala Harris, and her husband, why does the man in this power couple never seem to raise his head and look for that level of power that we are noticing with power couples when the man is in power and the woman ascends? Even when you look at Bill and Hillary, it's like when Hillary was running, I don't think Bill wanted her to be president because Bill going out there talking to people on the tarmac and saying shit so she wouldn't be president. It's like, are men capable of being the secondary in a power structure, but still ascending to a level of power? And I know that's off topic, John, but it just came to my mind, my man.
Yeah, that's a whole nother series. So,
It is, man. Write that down. Write that down.
And you
but
can leave that show. And you can leave that show, bro.
I
but
think I like how they portrayed her being under attack in those instances because the attack was, you are a woman. Where is your integrity? Where is your sense of self worth? How can you stand by this man? And she was. And first ladies are in this position where they have to choose between their own dignity, their own self esteem and self worth, and the perks of remaining that first lady, the power and the prestige that goes along with that. And so when they choose to stay with the scandalous pastor so that they can hold on to all the perks that goes along with that role, what they're sacrificing is their dignity. And other women are going to attack them for that. I felt like that was an accurate depiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, that's a very old saying from a political standpoint. And I
Hmm.
agree with you there. I just think that when you find yourself in that position, whether you're first lady, whether you're, you know, the president's wife, whatever they call that position, first lady.
Second
So,
gentleman. Oh,
yeah, so whatever role that you're in, to me, when you know that that man is foul, you are now culpable for a part of his actions. She know. I mean, if your husband getting behind you and you say, "No, let's do it the regular way," and he can't perform
That say
because he
something.
can only perform from behind because it simulates what he actually likes. You know what he's in the streets doing now when he goes out here and manipulates whether they're adults, whether they're whatever they are. When he goes out there and does that, you are culpable. If you know that your husband is misogynist and is preying on women, if you know that, then you are culpable for his actions. So I look at that first lady and the way they portrayed her in that movie. I saw it differently than you all saw it. I didn't see her as a victim. I saw her as someone who knew what was going on, who enjoyed the power, who liked the $1,000 hats. And I thought that was funny when he told her her hat made her look old. Who
Yeah.
liked the $1,000 hats? I felt like she stayed in her role, stayed in her position because she didn't see a means. Even when she was talking to her mom, like, I'm about to leave, old boy. It was like, I got to give all this up. It wasn't like my marriage is breaking down. It was like, I got to give all this up. No more dinners on the line.
Then what
I didn't
about at
see
the
her the same way.
very end when she snapped? If that's the case, at the very end when she snapped and is like, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Was that finally admitting that it's over and I need to move on?
I thought she was finally
She
admitting she
didn't
wanted a
leave,
man in her life.
changed her mind, and stayed. Remember, at the end, they were standing in front of the church and nobody showed up.
Right. No one showed up, and she pretty much was starting to become an individual because she didn't want him to touch her. She was like, we're here, but right before that ending scene, she walked off the street in her mind face and was like, I can't do this anymore.
But she
And I
Yeah,
came
think
but
back.
then she was at the church.
She came back. So she
Yeah,
didn't.
she was out front.
She
Yeah.
Yeah. She thought about taking a stand. She didn't take a stand. She came back.
She held him down in the end because she wanted
well
her
what
title.
what what well let me say she came back, but what you could tell it wasn't the same result because before they were a lovey-dovey cuddled standing for the church. When she came back, she may had an epiphanies like I'm just here to be the first lady because she didn't want to be touched. She just stood up there like I'm just here because I'm the first lady and I want
She
this,
she
but I'm
pulled a
not gonna fake
Melania.
it anymore.
She pulled a Melania Trump.
Well, but this is the thing. This is the thing. Does it matter if you say I don't want to be touched and nobody's there to see you?
That's true too.
You
And
you
if you
you
don't leave,
right. You have to be like, yo, I'm not coming to this church opening or don't touch me when people are there. But if me and you behind closed door and you say don't touch me, that don't mean shit. Did nobody see it? Don't nobody know? I mean, I might know it, but it's like I ain't been touching you anyway. I'm chasing boys.
she
But what
wasn't willing to make the ultimate sacrifice,
and that was
which
it.
makes me wonder. This is kind of in line with what Coleman was saying a little bit. But if the roles were reversed, if a man was in that position where his woman had been caught, she's the pastor, she's caught cheating on him, how many men would stay for their position as the first gentleman of a
We not
church?
built for that. We
Hey,
not built for that.
I
A
just
man would have rolled the hell out.
So what do they call the vice president's husband?
First gentleman. The
We
second
don't even
gentleman.
know.
The vice president husband.
I don't
Hey,
think
Second
they
that,
call him
gentleman.
shit, do they?
He's
I
now,
called
didn't
the
know he
second
had a
gentleman.
title. I've been learning all these titles since with the king with the queen dying, and and now
He's called the second gentleman.
Prince went to the
Say the
king,
queen
and
is dead, huh?
Dutch went to the to the prince, and
I
Hey,
want to move this topic to
hey,
another question
I
with
know you
a
do, but can I ask you one real quick question, John?
sure.
Do y'all remember one mofo the king? All right, John, go
well,
ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, we go. He's just dropping bombs here and there. He just seems to say it over.
and then
Uh,
sitting back like,
right, right. He still does this. He'll wait and then come in. Hey, you want to talk about something? He said it.
Hey, I need y'all to know when I'm serious.
and we do know.
I ain't here to play with y'all. Y'all better man.
Now
Come on now.
I'm gonna ask this question, and I'm gonna sit back and see who wants to really dabble in this question. Okay, we kind of talked about it earlier with the pastor being accepted as being gay versus the choir director being accepted gay, and you know how of late the LGBT community has been really taking off, taking stand, and a lot of people have gotten behind it. What do you think the church, black church, and I'm focused on the black church, will be acceptable of homosexual relationships, or will they still turn a blind eye, or will they call out the pastor or whomever and say homosexuality is a sin? Because there's a lot of people who are torn because we have all these pansexual, asexuals, and all these different sexuals, and they're trying to come to grips with their spirituality and their religion. So, do you think the black church will ever change their views to being in line with the LGBT community? Any
Nah,
one of y'all jump in with that.
I don't.
No,
Uh, yeah, I don't.
but they should.
Yeah, it's. I mean, to me, it's broader than the black church, right? It gets back to society, and I think a lot of this. I mean, you can go all the way back to slavery if you want to, and black men being emasculated when somebody comes to your cabin and takes your wife or your daughter out to have relations with her from a slave owner standpoint, right? So we have this whole thing on masculinity and what it means to have a wife and protect our women and all of these things because of some things that go way beyond our current generation. And because of our views on masculinity and things of that nature, we I don't foresee us as a community, not as a church, but as a community, where we've gotten to the point where we are accepting a homosexual lifestyle. Now, as generations change, um, that may change, but based on our current generations, based on our current beliefs and our current views on masculinity and relationships and things of that nature, I do not foresee that changing anytime soon.
No.
Anyone else want to expound or just go ahead?
Well, the reason why I said I agree with Coleman is not going to change. The reason why I said I think it should is because I think that more harm and damage is done by fostering a culture that forces preachers to stay in the closet. And I'm not just talking about, I know we're supposed to be talking about the black church, but white churches are doing things on a whole nother level of far and above and beyond what black churches are doing. And so
Bang,
I'm
bang, bang.
I'm not okay with excluding them when Catholic priests have been molesting uh, little boys for decades. And I feel like more harm is done by fostering a culture where they have to stay in the closet. These Catholic priests need to be able to get a damn husband and screw somebody who is consenting to screw them. Okay, as a
Joe, they not supposed to get married. Period.
they need to be allowed to because not allowing them to.
Well, hell, they ain't supposed to be having sex at all, but they
They
doing
supposed to be having sex. Listen,
Well, how the hell do you think they're gonna have a husband?
it's time to do an upheaval.
I
Sure,
mean,
like if y'all like women, forget that. But if y'all gonna go out there and get you some husbands, move on and be fruitful.
Let these Catholic priests.
They can't be fruitful. They can move on,
Well,
but they won't be fruitful.
well, maybe if they get a husband, they won't mess
Yeah,
with
they're
the
not
little
gonna be fruitful.
boys. Is that what
But
you're saying?
what?
If they let them have a husband, that mean they won't mess with the little boys. And
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because a pedophile is a pedophile. But
They're just gonna be
I
young
still
husbands.
think that there is more harm done
how is it
from expecting people to live in the closet than them being able to live their authentic
You
self.
saying a pedophile is a pedophile? How the hell is a high percentage of pedophile Catholic priests then? There's a whole lot of them motherfuckers pedophile.
Yeah, they're pedophile. Yeah, let me explain that.
Because they have a market.
When I say a pedophile is a pedophile has a core attraction to prepubescent children, to
Said a
children.
built-in market.
So marriage is not going to be a solution to pedophilia.
So
Okay,
why-
so let me
why
make that
priests-
clear. I'm not saying that letting the priest get married is going to end pedophilia. I'm
but
talking
my
about the
next point-
closeted priests that are screwing men. They need to have a damn husband.
But my next
They've
question
been
is why
sexually
so many
ignited.
priest pedophiles?
What?
Why are so many priest pedophiles? There's a high, as far as you want to throw occupations out for pedophiles, there's a whole lot of
But
that's
you
a
know-
high
but you know
percentile
what?
when it comes to priests.
But you know
Why
what,
they
LV?
pedophiles?
You know what, LV? We really don't know.
The-
We know there are a lot of stories
people
about
being
priests
caught.
who have about being caught, and those are the stories. But if we look at the total number of priests, how many of them are actually pedophiles? And that's something that we don't know. I'm with your point though. I think you
Well,
make a very
because
good
he
point.
said that they pedophiles, so that's why I'm based on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is, there's different.
the chances of being a pedophile are high if you want to be a priest. That's kind of messed up.
Well, there's different
Because-
hypotheses as far as what may be playing a role in a disproportionate number of priests being pedophiles, but research has not shown. There's no answer to that. Yes, hypothesized that the rigid sexual suppression within the Catholic Church, but there's no answer to why the hell have all these priests molested these kids. Nobody knows. Could it be due to a succession of pedophilia that takes place over generations and generations? That's possible. Have a lot of these priests been molested themselves? Quite possible. That is not, but not every person who is sexually abused becomes a pedophile either. So even that is not an explanation. We don't know why those freaks are molesting kids.
Okay.
They nasty.
Don't call them freaks, because see,
They're molesting kids.
Dude, listen.
They're molesting kids.
Listen.
But no,
LV
don't
be
don't
taking
put
Call
them
them
to
freaks
some of the
to keep from
crazy-
calling them what I want to call them.
disrespecting good freaks. You disrespecting good freaks by throwing the
Okay.
them sickos in there with that. No.
Okay. There are
You didn't jump on LV freak
Good
leader. You better.
No freaks.
No
No.
offense to all the good freaks out there.
No.
When I use the term freaks in that instance, I'm not talking about good freaks getting a good freak on.
Don't use freak the word.
I'm
freak.
talking about people who have a core attraction to children.
Sickos. Them some sick sons of bitches.
Okay. Yes.
You got Oliveira, your freak meter, boy. You better stop
Okay,
it.
he is defending freaks today.
He will fight you.
For all the freaks out there, I am not grouping y'all in with pedophilia and the priesthood. Okay.
So, Oliveira, do you actually know some freaks that you defend in that term for?
Oh, he's clearly defended some freaks that he knows very well and has a fondness for.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, We're gonna have closing comments, and then we're gonna end the show. So I'm gonna let LV be the first to have a closing comment.
I mean, hey, y'all done said it all. Yeah, I support the freaks. I do. The true freaks, the real freaks, the clean freaks, but not some sick son of a bitch want to play with a child. That's totally different. That shit ain't freaky. That's sick. That shit ain't kinky. That's fucked up. You can blame it on some mental shit or blame it on wherever the fuck you want, but you are a sick individual one way or another. And you can't throw my man R. Kelly in that category. That was for you, JP. But real talk. Real talk. Hey, everybody, like, share, subscribe. Next week, I promise I'm gonna give me some rest and I won't be so lethargic and everything. But when you got a 13-year-old and a 4-month-old puppy, which is like having a 2-year-old, shit get hectic sometimes. And when it's just me, every now and again my battery meter go down. I gotta get me a power pellet, get an extra boost so I can get back up there and do it how I do it.
Oh, here we go.
But, hey,
Uh-oh. There you go.
JP,
Rub nasty. Rub
your
nasty.
closing comments for
I
us
have
for
some closing
today's show.
comments. We didn't really get into this from the perspective that I was hoping that we would, so I'm gonna just make a closing comment on it. Um, I I'm this is my position. I have a lot of problems with the institution of church. Okay, I think that movie pointed out some of the scandals in the church, but the truth of the matter is there are a lot of scandals within church. And I feel like it is to the point that the church becomes a distraction and sometimes an obstacle between a person and them having the relationship with God that they are wanting to have. And here's why I say that. I am getting, and I learned a new term from my clients called church hurt. I am getting more and more people who are coming to therapy. They're not coming in complaining about their relationship with God. They're not complaining about the Lord. They're complaining about what they call church hurt. They are going to church to foster and nurture their relationship with God, and they are leaving hurt. And so I'm just keeping it totally real. I ain't been to church since the last scandal at the last church that I was at. Um, and I have lost a lot of respect for the institution of church because of pastors and their scandals and other scandals in general. Like I said, it's not just the black church, it's the white church also. And my suggestion to people is that you focus on your relationship with God and do not allow any pastor, first lady, or church in and of itself to be a distraction or an obstacle between you and your relationship with God. We have got to stop placing so much weight and value on preachers and the church.
well
That's
said.
it.
That was deep.
Say less.
Coleman, I'm gonna let you go out with your comment.
Shit, I'm scared to go after that. Um, I when Gerald said church hurt, it made me think of butt hurt, which is something we used to always say back in the day. You act like you butt hurt. And and then when Laverio was talking, and this just kind of speaks to the depth of some of these relationships. When Laverio was talking and started defending the freaks, I remember back in college, and the Alphas on the Yard had this show called Neek Frasty, and it was a play on Freak Nasty. And I remember him being there when the name of that show was developed and how we worked around the terminology freak because we didn't want to be viewed as somebody who was promoting or putting forth a certain lifestyle, but we also wanted to say, we coming to have a good time. So that whole freak thing brought back memories of some of those conversations back in the day. Um, I do attend church, and for me, it's one of those things where I look at it, and I agree with JP. It's the church should be about building your relationship with God, which is one of the things that I like in a pastor who says, I would not have a dumb church, and forces you to go out and read and build your understanding, and create a depth of understanding about the Bible, what your beliefs are, and that relationship with God. If you get somebody who gets you away from that, if you get somebody who focuses on the materials, who focuses on your giving more so than your relationship and building your understanding about how you get to be a better person, how you get to the gates of heaven. If you don't have that, then you are at decision time. And I hope that we all walk away from this conversation, not necessarily about homosexuality or about the black church, but about saying, I have choices to make. I have choices to make on who I support. You look at Ari Spears, I have choices to make about where I go to church. I have choices to make about the person who leads me as part of their flock. I have all of these choices to make, and you cannot abdicate that responsibility in making those choices and then turn around and say, well, I'm butthurt because I refuse to make choices and I've been led astray. So I appreciate you brothers having this conversation these last 2 weeks. I appreciate the brotherhood being so open and vulnerable to the point where we can have these discussions, put our true feelings out there about all of these topics, because we want to enlighten people and not make light of where they are in their journey. And our ability to do that transcends the topic and opens us up as a black community to have conversations that are not being had, whether we use comedy to do that or whether we're getting down into the weeds and the details of a subject. For me, really doesn't matter. Is the conversation being had? So once again, man, I love you brothers. John, I appreciate you bringing this topic up and doing it through the guise of the movie so that we can expose these various topics, how we feel, and delve into them. And I just think it was a well done job of navigating this as I and the other brothers kind of get off topic and you bringing us back. So, again, man, love you, brothers, and I appreciate the way you did that, John.
Well, for somebody who couldn't follow JP, that was a pretty good following, I must say.
He made me go deep.
And
God, stupid.
and I would like to say thank you. We there's so much here we could talk about. There's a lot of things we didn't get into. There won't be a part three next week. We'll just have another time in the future where we can go deeper into not just the sexuality, talking about the finances, talking about scandals, talking about a little bit of everything. Because for me, the black church was the foundation of civil rights. It was the foundation of keeping the family together. The church was the foundation for us to do better. And in the middle of fights, we could always rely upon the black church. And if that foundation is being attacked and we have gone after that foundation, that means we can crumble. And so the purpose of this is really to shore up our foundation so we can build upon that, because we have a lot going on in our community financially, spiritually, culturally, and there's so much that we need to do to move our community forward. I appreciate each one of you brothers being a part of this because, like I said, this creates the talk, the communication, the drive for us to do better. Because if we want better, we must do better, and we have to put in the fight, the struggle, and everything we need so we can have a better tomorrow. And I'm gonna end with this quote that I think was appropriate, and it kind of touched upon what D said. You make a choice, continue living your life feeling muddled in this abyss of self misunderstanding, or you find your identity independent of it. You draw your own box. With that being said, thank y'all for turning in. Please like, share, also comment. Let us know what you feel and how you believe. And who knows, we'll pull your comments and share them, and maybe even create a podcast around it. But again, thank you for being here. Till next time.
Yo, LV, you feeling sexually ignited, dog?